Be here for a great night on NESN every Friday when the focus is on baseball. The action starts at 6 with a half hour of summer game thrills with Yankees Magazine. Catch up on the comings and the goings of the Bronx Bombers when NESN delivers all the events from a week of baseball featuring some of the best in the game. Then stay tuned for another exciting season of This Week in Baseball. Join Mel Allen for a round trip through the week that was, for all the astounding plays, the timely hits, and the just plain good fun of the grand old game. Stay with NESN at 7 for the Week in Review from a Boston perspective, Red Sox Weekly. All the thrills and excitement New England's come to expect from the Red Sox. Stay on top of all the Bo Sox action from a week of baseball with Red Sox Weekly. 90 minutes every Friday night that no baseball fan should be without, only on NESN.
Coming up on Raceweek, the $200,000 Oxford 250, where Ricky Craven is the fastest car, but Jamie Aubie wins the show. The NASCAR Modified Tour moves to Jennerstown, where Hirschman is number 1. Dave Samard slams a wall at Star. And finally, the Dirt Modifieds run on asphalt at St. Air, where an outside runner steals the show. To admit that this is beautiful rural New England, acres of green grass and beautiful stately homes. Well, wait a minute, stop it right there. What has all of this got to do with motorsports? Well, believe it or not, it has absolutely nothing to do with motorsports. But what you're going to see next is the best in New England motorsports coverage. Hello, I'm Ben Dodge, and I welcome you to yet another edition of Raceweek. Well, in this edition of Raceweek, we're taking a look at another major event to be run in the Northeast, as we'll be venturing to the Oxford Plains Speedway in Oxford Plains, Maine. The setting will be the 250, a prestigious event for the Busch Grand National North. But that won't be the only story, as we'll be taking a look at the Dirt Modifieds on asphalt at St. Air. Combine that with some more controversy in the midgets, and you've got just the beginning. And we'll also take a look at the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour from Jennerstown Speedway. But right now, it's time to take a look at Friday and Saturday competition from the Stafford Motor Speedway and Riverside Park Speedway. It was Friday night competition at its best. The NASCAR Winston Racing Series was set for a 30-lap event. Kenny Johnson would jump out into the lead. George Yudowskis would run second. But the front pack of cars were already starting to dice it up in turn 1 when Brad Thrall and Ed Manning would come together. Eddie Spires would squeak by. Scott Gorman would end up spinning. Willie Hardy, Eddie Leclerc, and Teddy Christopher would be involved in the mix-up as things would go to caution. But back to green off turn 4. New challenge for the lead. Eddie Spires would work the inside of Kenny Johnson. Steve Shawanski would wait in position number 3 as Jeff Berry would come to the front with car number 22. Battle was on now for second when suddenly Chuck Doherty would have a left front tire go flat with car number 0. Berry would drop off the pace with car number 22. But back at the front of the field, Ted Christopher was showing some life when Bobby Georgiadis would have a problem with car number 86. Then suddenly off turn 2, Steve Shawanski and Teddy Christopher would come together as Christopher would take the long safe slide down through the center of the infield. Shawanski would fire it back up. Left front tire would be flat here, but back to green. It was Eddie Spires and another Christopher, Mike, to put the pressure on for position number 1. Mike Christopher was going strong to the outside when a massive mix-up occurred in turn 1. Glenn Sullivan with car number 34. Willie Hardy was also involved, and so was in the 26 of Yudowskis and Leclerc. Back to green, Mike Christopher stands on the throttle and pulls away with a black number 82. Christopher was in command. Eddie Spires was reeling him down, and Mike Paquette was right there to challenge on the outside when Ted Christopher and Bob Potter would get hitched up and literally get hooked together down the front straightaway. The two would be locked and slide to the infield as Potter and Christopher would suddenly become disconnected as Christopher would slide back towards the track. But it was Mike Christopher who dominated the racing action to the checker. Eddie Spires in for second. Mike Paquette was third. Bobby Georgiadis was fourth, and Jeff Berry would finish in the 5th spot. Chuck Zantarski won the first late model feature event of the night, but for round number 2, Jason Manafort would be starting right up front. Pressure would already be on as Dana Young would run strong and take over the lead by the time they got out of turn 2. Then Cliff Stakey would be in command of the event. 3 wide in the middle of the pack. Gary Sifredi on the outside. Selleck stuck in the middle. J.J. Goff down low. Then Selleck is out of shape. Norm Plantier has no place to go. Herb Bennett gets locked with Selleck as the two fight to get separated off turn number 2. Back to green. Bob Badura's got his hands full. It is Tommy Tagg to the outside and Phil Rondo down low. Rondo picks up the spot. Conrad Cody has no place to go, and contact is made as Badura goes sliding through the center of the infield. Back to green. Racing action at the front of the field. Dana Young is still trying to hold off Chuck Zantarski with Tommy Tagg, and Norm Plantier as Chris Stakey is still in command, way out in front with car number 66. The battle is still for position number 2. Stakey is the man in command. He will hold on and set the pace to secure his first victory of the season. Finishing in the number 2 spot is Wade Gagnon with car number 7. Phil Rondo is 3rd. Dana Young is 4th, and Chuck Zantarski will finish in the 5th spot. The 3rd division at Stafford was the pro stocks, and Bob Beckman would lead him into turn 1, but Scott Booley would give him a run for the money as they'd be evenly matched in turn 2. Rich Wood would also move in to put some pressure on there as Chris Kopech would start to smoke with car number M6. Tony Membrino was on the outside when suddenly a tire would go down and Membrino would go around with the number 00. Back under caution when the field went to green, it was Beckman still trying to fight with Wood to maintain the number 1 spot. Paul Supernaut driving Caruso's car was looking strong to the outside as car number 14, Tony Papali, would take over second. Papali would run on the inside groove, but Supernaut was awesome off turn 4, and the two would battle back to the line. It was Paul Supernaut to take over the number 2 spot. Papali would go in deep, the two would make contact, and Supernaut would get away, but Papali would go around. Beckman would be involved. Wayne Carroll, Billy Mansky, Jeff Zeidema, and car number 00 for Tony Membrino. When the field would regroup and go back to green, it was Paul Supernaut who looked strong at the front of the field. He would set the pace as Rich Wood would run on his back bumper. It was the 07 of Tom Rosati setting in 3rd with Houlihan running in the 4th spot. They'd start to string it out as Supernaut would start to pull away. On lap number 12, a caution would come out for a spinning car, but due to the lateness of the event and a 12 o'clock curfew, this event will be rescheduled for this Friday night for the remainder of the competition. Next, the racing action shift to Saturday night at Riverside Park Speedway. It was Roy Seidel on the inside of George Rudinas outside of row number 1 when the field would go to green. Into turn number 1, Rudinas would stand on the throttle and he'd set the pace. Outside would be the quickest and Dave Gallo would move into second. But front runners like Stan Greger and Ricky Summers were battling to get to the front of this field. Rick Summers would run the outside well, but Greger would stick like glue to the bottom, then drift up a bit and pick over position number 2, as suddenly John Zavisa would get out of shape with car number 01. A caution would come out on the field, and this would tighten things back up once again. On the restart, it was Stan Greger in command with car 28. Battle was now for positions 3 and 4, as Ricky Summers would run the inside of Bruce D'Alessandro. D'Alessandro would try to hold on the outside as George Rudinas would battle back to take over position number 1 from Stan Greger. But Greger, the crafty veteran, would still set the pace. Rudinas was still in second, and Rick Summers was giving him a run for the money when Jerry Marquis would take over the spot, as suddenly Rudinas would spin just in front of them. The new battle became for the 4th spot. Dan Avery and Chris Kopech would battle lap after lap, but Stan Greger would take down his 3rd win of the season. Bruce D'Alessandro in for 2nd. John Zavisa was 3rd. 4th was Chris Kopech, and 5th was Dan Avery. In the Pro Stock division, it was Eddie Kozel up front with car number 45 to lead him into turn number 1. Kozel would start to expand his lead when Steve Kelly would give him a shot to the bumper. Sokolowski would also come on strong. Front pack of cars, Billy Lordson was looking good, so was it Mark Farina with car number 52. Mike Como was stuck on the outside, and he'd stop things and back things up just a bit as Eddie Carroll was involved, playing bells in car number 07 for Tommy Rosati. But back to green, it was John Rosati now in command. He put car number 83 at the front of this field. Eddie Koza would run in second, and Mark Farina would run the bottom with ease to take over position number 3. Now work over to take the 2 spot. And suddenly, the number M6 of Chris Kopech would almost stop on the racetrack. Another spin would occur. Tom Rosati and Eddie Koza were involved as things would get tightened back up once again. It was John Rosati, the new leader. He'd set the pace with Farino on his back bumper and Dave Caruso moving in to challenge for position number 2. The 3 would battle, but to the checker was John Rosati to take down the win. Mark Farino in for 2nd, Jerry Marquis was 3rd, Steve Kelly was 4th, and Billy Lordson would finish in the 5th spot. Late model feature event, Fred LaForge would be starting to the inside of G. Perry. Into turn number 1, Bob Skinger would get a little bit out of shape with car number 88, but LaForge would try to hold off the challenges of Perry for the lead. Tom Terry and Dan DeLita would battle lap after lap as Terry would pick up the spot and move under to contend with Danny LaVoy. It was LaForge who now had to settle for 2nd, where Roger Charette was challenging, but G. Perry would take down the victory. Fred LaForge would finish in the number 2 spot. Roger Charette was 3rd, Bob Skinger was 4th, and Joe Scannell would finish in the 5th spot. Well, now that we got the regular Winston Racing Series racing action over, it's time to take another commercial break. And when we come back, we'll be taking a look at the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour from Jennerstown, Pennsylvania. We'll take a look at that controversy in the midgets and some of your favorite short track events. All of that and more right after this.
If a real race car driver, he'd get up on the outside and run where you're supposed to. When you stand on it instead of trying to nose under.
And he chopped me once. I wasn't letting it happen again. I'd rather crash than finish second. If he's going to run like that, we'll both crash. I don't care.
Black Speedways, got them all. The world's fastest modified, pros and streets racing on the fastest 5 and quarter mile. Wheel to wheel at speeds nearing 100 miles an hour. Catch the thrills of racing every Friday night at the NASCAR. The thrills of modified, pros, streets, strictlies, and minis at the track that separates the men from the boys. The NASCAR Speedway on Route 10 in Winchester. The track where legends are born.
America's Most Wanted, the men of the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour. The challenge, Riverside Park Speedway, the toughest quarter mile of them all for the Budweiser King of Beers 150 for the NASCAR Modified Tour. The reason, $50,000 is on the line in posted awards and prizes. The most talked about tour event of 1989. Time trials, a pit crew contest, plus modified tour drivers in late model streets. Wednesday, July 26th, the place to be, Riverside Park Speedway.
Tune in Monday, July 24th for AAA Baseball, a doubleheader as the Ball Sox host the Richmond Braves. All the action comes your way at 6, live. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to Race Week. Well, it's time to take a look at more Saturday night excitement. And the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour will lead the charge of excitement from Jennerstown Speedway in Jennerstown, Pennsylvania. Then we'll take a look at the Star Speedway and the Hudson Speedway as there's controversy in the midgets and more. But right now, let's go and look at the NASCAR Modified Tour from Jennerstown. It was the AC Delco TRW 150 with Mike McLaughlin defending champion of the tour on the inside of Tom Baldwin. Into turn number 1, McLaughlin looked strong, but Baldwin was already starting to hunt him down. Off the turn, they challenged down the back straightaway. Baldwin would tuck it into second, but here come Tony Hirschman on the inside. Mike Stefanik would run the outside, and Jamie DeMato would move in, making a 5-car bid for position number 1. But McLaughlin was the leader of the pack. He'd still set the pace. Suddenly, George Kemp would go to the pits. Right front tire would be flat on car number 26. The story was now being told on pit road. Tires again, the story at Jennerstown for Mike McLaughlin. But at the front of the field, it was Tony Hirschman. He refused to pit for tires and was starting to pull away. Mike Stefanik was coming on strong, and so was Jamie DeMato, as Reggie Ruggiero had pitted on 2 occasions and was coming back to the front of the field. Suddenly, Rick Fuller would slam the wall hard with car number 77. Another caution would come out, and that would send even more cars back to the pits. Rick Fuller's night had suddenly ended with severe damage done to the number 77. But it was Hirschman hunted down by Ruggiero right through the closing laps of the event. Ruggiero would work the inside lane as Hirschman would try to hold on. The story was a bid for the lead off turn number 4, as Tony Hirschman's strategy would pay off as he would hold off Reggie Ruggiero. Finishing third was Jamie DeMato, fourth was Mike Stefanik, and fifth was Mikey Winitsko. It was Hirschman's third win of the 1989 season on the Modified Tour.
After a beautiful summer sunset, a bright quarter moon rose over Star Speedway for a Saturday night of racing featuring the high-powered winged NEMA midgets and a full complement of Winston NASCAR racing. First up was the winged super modified feature, and earlier in the day, the Magnum Oil Heat races were won by Dick Batchelder and Dave Simard, 2 drivers that were to play an important part in the feature race. Maury Dumas waved the green flag to the field with Scott Heil in the number 12 Super roaring off to a quick lead. Dave Simard in the 98 quickly slipped into second, while Bud Crotty Jr. followed. Back in the pack, Russ Wood and Dick Batchelder in the 77 were making their way up to the front from the back of the field. A yellow came out for the spinning Howie Lane, and at the restart, Heil again assumed command of the race as the Super appeared to be on rails. Fighting for second place was Scott Martel, who dogged Simard, finally passing the Belfiore machine. After another quick yellow, Heil continued his run position, while in the middle of the pack, Larry Record in the number 11 and Russ Wood in the number 27 provided the excitement with a little bumping. After another yellow for the stalled 51 machine, Heil sped off into the lead with Scott Martel and Simard following. Simard feeling comfortable with the high line while Martel ran the low route. After a couple of side-by-side laps, Simard's machine suddenly darted to the right, head-on to the main straight wall. Simard laid motionless in the battered machine while the safety crew attended to the unconscious driver. Fortunately, Simard was able to walk away from the destroyed machine. Observers at the track stated that Simard's crash was one of the most violent ever witnessed in the super-modified ranks. On the restart, Martel got the jump on Heil, but Heil fought for the first corner, sending both machines off the track. Another restart, in 1988, Star Classic champ Dick Batchelder found himself in position number 1. Behind him, Art Russo, now aboard the red McDonald number 1, held off the challenges of Russ Wood. Wood ended up having a couple of wild spins attempting to get to the front, but at the end, it was the two veterans, Dick Batchelder and Art Russo, for the 1-2 finish. Following the top two across the finish line were Larry Record and Howard Page. Dick Batchelder, number 3 on the year. Tough one today, a wild and woolly night here at Star.
It was easy for me. I just waited for them to get done running over themselves and went for a ride.
Were you afraid at all at that last restart that Artie was going to get you?
No, Artie's a good competitor. I knew Artie wouldn't do anything foolish. You know, he's been running a long time. You know, between the two of us, we probably got 100 years of racing. But no, Artie's a good boy. He'll give you a good, fair restart.
Any problems with the car at all tonight?
No, I think it would drive itself, to be honest with you. I think they just put me in there to talk to you guys.
Congratulations again on a great win.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Next up were the Pro Stockers with Norm Wren leading the field, while Mike Catino and Pete Fiandaca followed. During the early going, Wren held the lead with Babe Branscombe in the 38, and Fiandaca doing battle for that position. Fiandaca finally moved into second, with Gigi Grapple following, and Babe Branscombe settling into fourth. Fiandaca set his sights on the machine of Norm Wren, and the two would do battle in the front while Branscombe settled into the third position. After a yellow for Mike Murphy in the M3, Fiandaca continued his assault on Norm Wren. Suddenly, Fiandaca began to fall off the pace as the machine of Wren began leaking fluid from the rear of the car. Track officials finally were forced to black flag the Wren machine, and Fiandaca now had control of the race as he took the lead on the restart. Behind him, Branscombe, Wayne Hellewell, and Pete Frappier all did battle, and at the checker, it was Fiandaca over Branscombe, with Hellewell a close third. Rounding out the top 5 was Pete Frappier and Kevin Stewart. Next up was the first part of a doubleheader for the SM LaRusso & Sons Northeastern Midget Association. At Star Speedway, the stage was set for the feature when heat wins were taken by Jeff Horn and Drew Fenoro. At the start of the feature, Mike LaJoy, Frank Antono, Doug Cleveland, and Lee Smith were involved in a turn 1 skirmish that sent all 4 cars to the rear of the field for a restart. On the restart, Brian Caruso held the lead, but was quickly passed by Riverside Park winner Jeff Horn. Horn began to put some distance between himself and the rest of the field, but up from 10th on the starting grid was Drew Fenoro, who eventually settled into second and began pursuing Horn. The race to watch, however, was between Howard Bumpus and Joey Coy as these drivers fiercely contested third place. In traffic, Fenoro almost had his race come to an end when Paul Storr slowed suddenly and moved to the outside of the track. Storr eventually came to a stop, drawing the yellow flag. On the restart, Horn held his lead and seemed certain of victory until the last lap. Bumpus, in the meantime, took advantage of a bobble by Coy, and both men split the lapped car of Bobby Whitcomb on the backstretch, with Bumpus eventually taking third. Up front, however, Fenoro had caught Horn, and as they entered the final turn, they touched, with predictable results. Because Fenoro was able to keep his car going, it was decided to put him back in the front for a green-white checker restart. An outraged Horn took his frustrations out on the rear of Fenoro's car and was black flagged by starter Earl Grant. Fenoro went on to win handily from Howard Bumpus, Joey Coy, Brian Caruso, and Lee Smith. Both drivers had opinions about the accident. Drew, finally, the luck has changed here at Star, but you had a very close call with on the very last lap. How did you keep the presence of mind to keep the car going? Because that was the only way you could start in front again.
Well, I wasn't lifting. I mean, he chopped the guy 2 weeks ago, caused me to win Riverside. You get square up next to the guy. He don't want to lift. He turns left on you. I'm not a nice guy anymore. I run to win.
and win again. You did tonight. Your luck certainly has changed here at Star Speedway. Apart from the incident with Horn, how is the car handling?
Jeff had me covered. If Jeff had run the race, instead of worrying about running defensive and protecting his spot from me, he'd have won the race. He'd have run away from me. But he got nervous. He started running protection instead of running fast, and I caught him. And he chopped me once. I wasn't letting it happen again. I'd rather crash than finish second. If he's going to run like that, we'll both crash. I don't care.
Almost there, but not quite. Your response to the accident?
Well, the response is, you saw it. You were there as well as everybody else. Drew Finoro drove underneath me, up over on top of my left front wheel, and put me out of the race. So that is the way he won his race. If he was a real race car driver, he'd get up on the outside and run where you're supposed to. When you stand on it, instead of trying to nose under, just work his way under until he either pushes somebody out of the way or tries to get by him that way. That's not a race car driver. If that's the way he chooses to drive, he can take his win, because it's a hollow win. That is one hollow victory.
The controversy didn't end with the drivers, however. Starter Earl Grant wanted to send both cars to the rear on the restart. The NEMA board met well until after all the competition was finished at Star, finally deciding that there would be no change in the starting results. President Mike Favuli, who did not race at Star, said that while the rule book states any car involved in an accident must go to the rear, traditionally, the Northeast Midget Association has always held that if a car does not need a push truck, he may retain the position it held on the last green flag lap. Round number 2 of the doubleheader moved to Hudson International Speedway for the first time in 1989. Feature time at Hudson Speedway saw Frankie Antorno launch into a lead that he would refuse to relinquish for most of the yellow flag-stricken race. Drew Finoro was able to get under him shortly after the midway point, and Drew Finoro took off and was gone, winning his second feature on the weekend. Antorno held off the charges of Lee Smith, Babe Shaw, and the Seymour brothers at one time, but he could not hold off the advances of Jeff Horn. In a repeat of the previous evening's events, Horn got up to Antorno, and the two cars tangled with about laps to go. This put Joey Coy and Lee Smith in a position to battle for second. Smith wound up being the top upright in the field, finishing second. Mike LaJoy, having a wonderful weekend, finished third. Joey Coy was fourth, and Jeff Horn came from the back of the pack again to finish in fifth. For Raceweek, I'm Chris Romano.
Thanks, Chris. Well, I'm sure from what we've seen in the midgets, we're not going to see the last of Drew Finoro and Jeff Horn. Sparks will fly again, I'm sure, on the next stop of the SM LaRusso Tour for the midgets. Well, it's time to take another commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be off to the state of Maine for the Oxford 250.
America's Most Wanted, the men of the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour. The Challenge, Riverside Park Speedway, the toughest quarter mile of them all for the Budweiser King of Beers 150 for the NASCAR Modified Tour. The reason, $50,000 is on the line in posted awards and prizes. The most talked about tour event of 1989. Time trials, a pit crew contest, plus modified tour drivers in late model streets. Wednesday, July 26th, the place to be, Riverside Park Speedway.
Hello there, everybody. This is Mel Allen.
Join Mel Allen for the best from around the world of baseball. This Week in Baseball, Friday at 6:30 p.m.
Welcome back to Race Week. Well, now we're going to take a look at that Oxford 250 we've been talking about. Now, what makes this event so special? Well, it pays more than any other event for the Busch Grand National North that is run in the Northern Circuit. Now, combine that with some of the best drivers from the South and the North, and literally thousands of race fans, and you've got a great setting for the Oxford 250. As Dan Wolf will file this report.
Over 25,000 race fans on hand here today at Oxford Plains Speedway for the 16th annual True Value Hardware Oxford 250. And this automobile, the car of Chuck Bound, 1986 Oxford 250 winner. And today, he is the Busch Pole Award winner for the 1989 Oxford 250. He is among many Southern drivers on hand here today, including Davey Allison, Rusty Wallace, Harry Gant, Tommy Ellis, And as Grand Marshal today, the legendary Bobby Allison.
And we asked the Winston Cup stars why they came to the Oxford 250.
25,000 screaming fans for one. It's a great race. I've never been here before. I think everybody needs to experience it once. I hear it's a really pretty neat race. And so I wasn't doing anything this week. Myself and Harry Gant and Davey Allison and Morgan Shepherd decided to come up here and run. And I had no idea those guys were coming. We just met here. And so I think it's going to be a great race. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be a real fender contact race because there's so many cars, such a little racetrack.
Well, there are a lot of things. The fans, the people that we don't get to see every week. You know, the people are way up here up north. A lot of them get to come down, but not all of them. And just racing all over the country, we enjoy that.
Does this race have a significant meaning to you where your father won his first Winston Cup race here?
Well, the racetrack has a significant meaning to me because of that. And, you know, it'd be nice to win a race here, especially since that's where he won his first Winston Cup race. And it was 23 years ago this weekend that he did that. But, you know, being inexperienced here with a bunch of good Busch Grand National North drivers, it'll be awful tough to do, but we're going to go out here and do the best we can anyway.
Oxford holds fond memories for Grand Marshal Bobby Allison.
Oh, it really does. I'm telling you, this speedway here will always be something extra special to me. You know, I won my first time here 23 years ago, I guess it was, and you know, I had a lot of good times since then, but I've always thought about this place.
In all, 6 former winners in the field, and with the pre-race festivities over, 42 late model stock cars took the green flag for the 16th annual Oxford 250. Joey Carafas took the early lead in car number 01. First caution on lap 17 for lady driver Karen Schultz. More cautions. Then on lap number 39, Mike Rowe went around Carafas and put the O'Connor GMC car number 15 into the lead. Rick Craven narrowly escaped trouble on lap 74 when Dave Davis and Tommy Ellis came together in turn number 4. The second lead change of the race came on lap 74 as veteran Bobby Dragon of Milton, Vermont passed the 15 of Mike Rowe. 8th caution of the day came on lap 144 with wholesale pit activity. And Rick Craven, the young lion from Maine, had come from 42nd starting position to lead the Oxford 250 in the E.J. Prescott Buick number 09. Caution on lap 155 again for Mike Olson in car number 61. Caution on lap 233 damaged 4th and place 5th runners Rick Craven and Dave Dion. On lap 241, Dick McCabe and a lapped Tommy Ellis came together, but both were able to continue. At the finish, it was Jamie Obie in car number 41, the winner. Dick McCabe was second. Bruce Haley of Minot, Maine was third. Tommy Houston fourth. Billy Clark fifth. Rick Craven sixth.
Jamie, did you think when you got here tonight that this would be your second Oxford 250 win?
Well, we had to believe it. Last time we ran here, the car went super, and we came here with the idea that we could definitely win the race, and crew did a super job, and the race went our way tonight.
Did you have a special strategy when you got here tonight?
Oh, we had about 3 of them worked out, and we sat down and talked it over and decided we needed to take tires on. We knew we had to, and took them on early. The crew did a super job. We got back out. We was able to take over the lead, and it just went great from that on.
In all, 13 cautions and 6 lead changes as Jamie Obie becomes the 3rd two-time winner of the Oxford 250. At Victory Lane at Oxford Plains Speedway for Race Week, I'm Dan Wolf reporting.
Now, one race does not experience make, and pavement, particularly the 3/4 miles of the San Air Super Speedway east of Montreal, is another universe from the half-mile dirt these drivers have competed on their whole careers. Early lap saw a hot potato lead. First Schrader led, but Hearn had the top spot before lap 2. McLaughlin was flexing his strength, and then Watertown, New York's McCready really took charge. McLaughlin provided the only real white-knuckle moment of the race while moving through the tri-oval second turn on this unusual 3-turn track. He experienced a classic oversteer when a tire deflated. Martin Roy did an excellent job at well above 100 miles per hour, avoiding Mike, who completed a 360 and drove on. McCready, meanwhile, was the superior car in the race. McLaughlin was probably just as fast, and he was mowing down front runners returning to the front. But neither would finish. First McCready is out. Driveline problems. With less than 20 laps to go, the first 5 are all together. Schrader driving the team car to Decker, Danny Johnson, Jack Johnson, and Brett Hearn. Then things really began to happen. Employee Schrader passes employer Decker, and that room allowed Dr. J to operate past 2. And then Danny eclipsed Kenny, but Schrader refused to surrender. And then he blasted back into sliding thrust in turn 3. Soon everybody is smoking tires. Schrader went on to steal the win from the DIRT regulars. At least he was driving one of their cars. And second place was a near photo finish. Hearn just turning back Jack Johnson.
Well, the next time the dirt modifieds will be running on asphalt will be right here in the heart of New England at the Thompson International Speedway on August 6th. Speaking of the Thompson International Speedway, we'll be bringing you on the next edition of Raceweek the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour combined with the Busch Grand National North. But that won't be the only story. We'll also be taking a look at the Coors Act Tour and more great racing action on dirt from the Lebanon Valley Speedway, plus more of the Stafford Motor Speedway, Monadnock Motor Raceway, and Riverside Park Speedway. All of that will be coming at you for the next edition of Raceweek. Until then, we say take care, and we'll see you again next time for more of the best in New England motorsports coverage. Bye-bye now.